Hi ho folks, this is Roy Brooks, the 5-inch tall VTuber with a 5 mile long to-do list. And at the top of today's to-do list, it's been a long week, especially for how things have been at my job. It's been extremely busy, so I think it's time to end off the week with just some nice relaxing bedtime stories. Now, as voted on Twitter, we'll be reading some Native American myths, and I should say ahead of time, some of these may not match up with your religious beliefs, but this isn't meant to be any sort of religious themed or religious analysis stuff and such kind of thing, but I'm just reading stories for the sake of reading some relaxing, entertaining bedtime stories. That's all there is to it. So, on that note, we are going to be starting off with a tale that supposedly has to do with it's supposed to be one of the creation myths from the White River Sioux. Let's see. This is the story of Rabbit Boy. In some tribes, it is called the story of Blood Clot Man. As you know, Jenny Leading Cloud said, we Native Americans think of the earth and the whole universe as a never-ending circle. And in this circle, man is just another animal. The buffalo and coyote are our brothers. The birds are cousins. Even the tiniest ant, even a louse, even the smallest flower you can find. They are all relatives. We end our prayers with the words, Mitakuye Oyasin, all my relations. And that includes everything that grows, crawls, runs, creeps, hops, and flies on this continent. White people see man as nature's master and conqueror, but Native Americans, who are close to nature, know better. Yep, there are parts of this book that I'm reading that I will be changing around the wording so as to avoid any sort of, controversy. I don't know. Like I said, I just want to read these as relaxing bedtime stories. If you want to analyze any of the religious meanings behind any of these stories, do so on your own, but please not in this stream, please not in this chat. Just as it is right now, I just want to relax and read and have a fun time with these stories. So let us begin with Rabbit Boy. Once again, I am going to be using a physical book. I don't know, just these Barnes & Noble, these special edition books that are at Barnes & Noble, they're just so elegant and beautiful. They look great on a shelf, so I've been kind of collecting them, and this Native American Myths and Legends is part of that collection. So enough of my forewarnings, stuff and such. Let's just get right into the story. Rabbit Boy. In the old days, before Columbus, quote-unquote, discovered us, as they say, we were even closer to the animals than we are now. Many people could understand the animal languages. They could talk to a bird, gossip with a butterfly. Animals could change themselves into people, and people into animals. Oh, excuse me. Yawn. It was a time when the earth was not quite finished, when many kinds of mountains and streams, animals and plants came into being according to nature's plan. In these far gone days, hidden from us as in a mist, there lived a rabbit. A very lively, playful, good-hearted rabbit. One day, this rabbit was walking, enjoying himself, when he came across a cloud of blood. How it got there, nobody knows. It looked like a blister, a little bladder full of red liquid. Well, the play rabbit began toying with that cloud of blood, kicking it around as if it were a tiny ball. Now, we Native Americans believe in. Oh, geez, I hope I don't butcher this I'm sorry if I butcher the pronunciation of some of these. Takuskanskan, the mysterious power of motion. Its spirit is in anything that moves. It animates things and makes them come alive. Well, the rabbit got into this strange moving power without even knowing it, and the motion of being kicked around, or rather, the spirit of the motion, and I hope you can grasp what I mean by that, began to work on the little blob of blood, so it took shape, forming a little gut. The rabbit kicked it some more, and the blob began to grow tiny hands and arms. The rabbit kept nudging it, and suddenly it had eyes and a beating heart. In this way, the rabbit, with the help of the mysterious moving power, formed a human being, a little boy. The rabbit called him Wiota Wichasa, Much Blood Boy, but he is better known as Rabbit Boy. The rabbit took him to his wife, and both of them loved this strange little boy as if he were their only son. They dressed him up in a beautiful buckskin shirt, which they painted with a sacred red color and decorated with designs made of porcupine quills. The boy grew up happily among the rabbits. When he was almost a man, the old rabbit took him aside and said, "Son, I must tell you that you are not what you think you are, a rabbit like me. You are a human. We love you, and we hate to let you go, but you must leave and find your own people." Rabbit Boy started walking until he came to a village of human beings, where he saw boys who looked like himself. He went to the village. The people could not help staring at this strange boy in his beautiful buckskin clothes. "Where are you from?" they asked him. "I am from another village," said Rabbit Boy, although this was not true. Okay, I'm sorry, but I need a moment to get some water. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. Got my water, and now I'm all settled in. Okay, so story so far: a little boy born from a blood clot that a rabbit kicked about. The rabbit ended up raising the boy as his own until he was old enough until the rabbit said, "You are not a rabbit, you are a human. Go be among other humans." Rabbit. So the rabbit boy arrives at the village, and then he went to the village. He went into the village. The people could not help staring at this strange boy in his beautiful buckskin clothes. "Where are you from?" they asked him. "I am from another village," said Rabbit Boy, though this was not true. There was no other village in the whole world, for as I told you, the earth was still in its beginning. In the village was a beautiful girl who fell in love with Rabbit Boy, not only for his fine clothes, but also for his good looks and kind heart. Her people too wanted him to marry into the village, wanted a man with his great mystery power to live among them. And Rabbit Boy had a vision. In it, he was wrestling with the sun, racing the sun, playing hand games with the sun, and always winning. But Iktomi, the wicked Spider-Man. Spider-Man? I wasn't expecting that to show up here. Okay, jokes aside. Iktomi, the wicked Spider-Man, the mean trickster, prankster, and witch doctor, wanted that beautiful girl for himself. He began to say bad things about Rabbit Boy. "Look at him," Iktomi said, "showing off his buckskin outfit to us who are too poor to have such fine things." And to the men he said, "How come you're letting him marry a girl from your village?" He also told them, "In case you want me to, I have a magic hoop to throw over that Rabbit Boy. It will make him helpless." Several boys said, "Iktomi is right." They were jealous of Rabbit Boy on account of his strange power, his wisdom, and generosity. They began to fight him, and Spider-Man threw his magic hoop over him. Though it had no effect on Rabbit Boy, he pretended to be helpless to amuse himself. The village boys and young man tied Rabbit Boy to a tree with rawhide thongs. All the time, the evil Spider-Man was encouraging them. "Let's take our butchering knives and cut him up." "Friends, Kolapila," said Rabbit Boy, "if you are going to kill me, let me sing my death song first." And he sang, "Friends, friends, I have fought the sun. He tried to burn me up, but he could not do it. Even battling the sun, I held my very own." Whoop. Sorry about that. I guess I got a phone alarm that I forgot to turn off. Okay. After the death song, the villagers killed Rabbit Boy and cut him up into chunks of meat, which they put in a soup pot. But Rabbit Boy was not hurt easily. A storm arose, and a great cloud hid the face of the sun, turning everything into black night. When the cloud was gone, the chunks of meat had disappeared without a trace, but those who had watched closely had seen the chunks forming up again into a body, and had seen him going up to heaven on a beam of sunlight. A wise old medicine man said, "This Rabbit Boy really has powerful medicine. He has gone up to see the sun. Soon he will come back stronger than before, because up there he will be given the sun's power. Let's marry him to that girl of ours." But the jealous spider Iktomi said, "Why bother about him? Look at me. I am much more powerful than Rabbit Boy. Here, tie me up too. Cut me up. Be quick." Iktomi thought he remembered Rabbit Boy's song. He thought there was power in it, magic strength. But Iktomi did not remember the words right. He sang, "Friends, friends, I have fought the moon. She tried to fight, but I won. Even battling the moon, I came out on top." They cut Iktomi up as he had told them. But he never came to life again. The spider had finally outsmarted himself. Evil tricksters always do. This story was told by Jenny Leading Cloud in White River Rosebud Indian Reservation, South Dakota, 1967, and recorded by Richard Erdos. I don't know how much this is as a origin story, but it is quite cute. Just a sly little tale about people being clever and being tricked, and people thinking that they've won, but nah, it didn't quite work out for Iktomi there. Okay, let me adjust myself since my back's starting to get a little sore. One moment. Okay, let's continue on with the next tale. Blood Clot, southern Ute. Unlike the previous tale, here the baby is born from a clot of buffalo blood and derives his power from the mighty buffalo tribe. Long ago, a very old man and his wife lived alone and hunted for game, but it was scarce and they were hungry. One day, the man discovered some buffalo tracks and followed him to the place where the animal had stopped. Excuse me. There, he found only a big clot of blood, which he wrapped in his shirt and carried home. The old man told his wife to boil the blood, and she put it into the kettle with water from the creek. But before it came to a boil over the fire, they heard cries inside the kettle. The man ran up to it and pulled out a baby, a little boy, who had somehow formed out of the blood clot. The old couple washed the baby and wrapped him up. By the next morning he had grown much larger, and that day he continued to grow until he could crawl about by himself. The second day he was able to walk a little, and by the third day he was walking with ease. The couple called him Blood Clot and came to treat him as their son. The old man made little arrows so the child could learn to shoot. Soon Blood Clot needed larger arrows, and with them he began to hunt birds and other small game. He never brought the game home himself, but sent the old man for it. One day, Bloodclot returned from hunting and said, "I've killed something with a striped back." The man went out and fetched an animal a little bigger than a mouse. Bloodclot, please stay away from me. The man went out, fetched an animal a little bigger than a mouse, which he cooked for the three of them. The next day the boy announced, "I have killed a white short-tailed animal. It was a cottontail, which the man also cooked." The day after that, Bloodclot went farther and killed a badger. "I have killed an animal in a hole in the ground," he said, and the man brought the creature home and cooked it. The following day when the boy returned, he said, "I have killed an animal with black ears and a black tail." To the old man's joy, it was a female deer. The three of them ate and were happy. Next, Bloodclot said, "I have killed a big fellow with big antlers." It was an elk, and so again the family feasted on meat. The old man gave the boy a full-sized bow and arrows, and Bloodclot went into the mountains and shot a mountain goat. "I have killed an animal with big horns in the mountains," he said when he came down. Every day, the old man says proudly, he kills a different kind of animal. Now the troubles were over, and they had an easy time. Bloodclot killed a mountain lion. Then he tracked and shot an otter. "I have killed an animal with nice fur living in the water." The old man tanned the skin to make strings for tying the bow's braids. The following day, Bloodclot found a beaver. "I have killed a water animal with a tail of this size." At last, there came a day when Bloodclot said, "I want to visit the village where many people live, but before that, I will go on my last hunt for you, all day and night. First, I want you to tie up the tent, I want you to tie up the tent, put rocks on the edge, and fasten the door, lest the night wind carry it away. Though the wind will be strong, don't go outdoors and don't be afraid. I will call you when you come out." The old couple obeyed, and he hunted all night long while they were sleeping. About daybreak, they heard a big noise, forerunner of a wind that threatened to tip over the tent. The man was frightened and wanted to go out, but his wife held him back, reminding him of what their son had said. When daylight came, they heard their son's voice. "Come on out, I'll show you something." They unfastened the door and saw dead buffalo lying all around. "I have done this for you," Bloodclot said. "Dry the meat and hides. Save the meat, and it will last you for a long time. The young man asked his mother to fix him a lunch, and she gave him pemmican, or I don't know how you pronounce that word. Now my parents have plenty of food, he said. As he left, they cried and asked him to return. Wearing buckskin leggings, carrying a quiver of mountain lion skin, Bloodclot began to travel. After a few days, he reached the village. At the outskirts, he asked for the chief's house, and a man told him, "It is in the center." There, he found the chief with his wife and daughter. They invited him to sit down, and the chief asked him where he came from and what his tribe was. "I do not know what tribe I belong to. I have come to visit you," Bloodclot replied. The chief stepped outdoors and shouted to the people to come and greet their visitor. The villagers were starving for lack of game, but all gathered at the chief's house and sat down. The chief said, "Do any of you know the tribe of this young man?" People named the tribes: deer, elk, otters, beavers, and others. They asked him whether he belonged to any of these, but he thought not. At last, one old man said, "I think I know from the power in him, although I may be mistaken. I think he is one of the buffalo." Bloodclot thought about it and finally agreed. The people of the village asked Bloodclot to stay and marry the chief's daughter. He agreed to this as well, and the wedding was held. That evening, he asked his father-in-law to bring one arrow from the teepee. When the chief returned, Bloodclot told him to have all the teepees fastened and to warn the people that they should stay indoors, for there would be a great storm. The chief told the villagers, and at daybreak, when they heard a big noise, they cried out in fear but did not leave their teepees. Then Bloodclot called to the chief, who came out to find dead buffalo before every lodge. At his son-in-law's bidding, he summoned the whole village for a feast, and they were all happy. Bloodclot stayed there until one day when a group of villagers went out to hunt buffalo. Long before this, he told his wife, "You know the buffalo calf? I am part of that. It is part of me. So you must never say the word calf." When the party killed some buffalo and were butchering, another herd came running past. His wife pointed and called, Kill that calf." Immediately, Bloodclot jumped on his horse and galloped away, charging as he did so into a buffalo. His wife cried and attempted to catch him, but in vain. From that time on, Bloodclot ran with the buffalo. Based on a story reported by Robert Louis in the 1920s. Whew. Well, animal rights activists would not be happy with this particular story. But back during those times, it was either you hunt and eat or you won't survive. I'm glad things have changed, but this is also kind of a sad tale about a mysterious child born from an animal and identifying himself with an animal. I mean, it is pretty much part of Native American tradition, as I said earlier, that the Native Americans, they consider the wildlife to be siblings, to be family, that every single thing that breathes, we are not that far related from, and that humans are not the masters. They're simply another form of life in this world. The sad part about Native Americans, their culture is Native Americans didn't really have a writing system. All of their stories were told verbally and were passed down among generations, so who knows what the original version of these tales might have been. It's kind of like a game of telephone where As you pass the stories down through the generations, things are adjusted and changed or misremembered. But at least in this case, I think the true meaning still holds. Still holds. Okay, so let's go on ahead to the next story. Corn Mother from the Penobscot tribe. Just looking through at all these other tales. Okay. What the buffalo represented to the nomadic tribes of the plains, corn was to the planting people of the east and southwest the all nourishing sacred food, the subject of innumerable legends, and the central theme of many rituals. Derived from a wild grass called teoncintle, corn was planted in Mexico's Tehuacan Valley as early as 8,000 years ago. The oldest corn found north of the Mexican border was discovered in New Mexico's Bat Cave. It is about 5,500 years old. The Hopis say, Moingima makes corn. Everything grows on his body. He is short, about the height of a boy. He has a female partner. Every summer he becomes heavy. His body is full of vegetables, watermelon, corn, squash. They grow in his body. When the Hopi plant, they invariably ask him to make the crops flourish. Then their things come up, whether vegetables or fruit. When he shaves his body, the seeds come out, and afterwards his body is thin. He used to live on this earth and go with the Hopi. When things grow ripe, he becomes thin and is unhappy. He stays in the West. Corn had equal significance for tribes in the East, as we see in this tale from a New England tribe. The tale of Corn Mother. Oh boy, already I've got a word that might be a little difficult to pronounce. Hold on. When Kloskerbe the Allmaker lived on Earth, there were no people yet. But one day, when the sun was high, a youth appeared and called him, Uncle, brother of my mother. The young man was born from the foam of the waves, foam quickened by the wind and warmed by the sun. It was the motion of the wind, the moistness of the water, and the sun's warmth which give him light. Warmth above all, because warmth is life. And the young man lived with Kloskerbe and became his chief helper. Hold on, got a big yawn coming. Now, after these two powerful beings had created all manners of things, there came to them, as the sun was shining at high noon, a beautiful girl. She was born of the wonderful earth plant, and of the dew, and of warmth. Because a drop of dew fell on a leaf, and was warmed by the sun, and the warming sun is life, this girl came into being, from the green living plant, from moisture, and from warmth. I am love, said the maiden. I am a strength giver. I am the nourisher. I am the provider of men and animals. They all love me. Then Kloskerbe thanked the great mystery above for having sent them the maiden. The youth, the great nephew, married her, and the girl conceived and thus became first mother, and Kloskerbe, the great uncle, who teaches humans all they need to know, taught their children how to live. Then he went away to dwell in the north, from which he will return sometime when he is needed. Now the people increased and became numerous. They lived by hunting, and the more people there were, the less game they found. They were hunting it out And as the animals decreased, starvation came upon the people, and First Mother pitied them. The little children came to First Mother and said, "We are hungry, feed us." But she had nothing to give them, and she wept. She told them, "Be patient. I will make some food. Then your little bellies will be full." But she kept weeping. Her husband asked, "How can I make you smile? How can I make you happy?" "There is only one thing that will stop my tears." "What is that?" asked her husband. "It is this. You must kill me." "I could never do that." "You must, or I will go on weeping and grieving forever." Then the husband traveled far, to the end of the earth. To the north he went, to ask the great instructor, his uncle Kloskerbe, what he must do. "You must do what she wants. You must kill her," said Kloskerbe. Then the young man went back to his home. It was his turn to weep. But First Mother said, "Tomorrow at high noon you must do it. After you have killed me, let two of our sons take hold of my hair and drag my body over that empty patch of earth. Let them drag me back and forth, over every part of the patch, until all my flesh has been torn from my body. Afterwards, take my bones, gather them up, and bury them in the middle of this clearing. Then leave that place." She smiled and said, "Wait 7 moons, and then come back, and you will find my flesh there, flesh given out of love, and it will nourish and strengthen you forever and ever." So it was done. The husband slew his wife for her sons, praying, dragging her body to and fro as she had commanded, until her flesh covered all the earth. Then they took up her bones and buried them in the middle of it. Weeping loudly, they went away. When the husband and his children and his children's children came back to that place after 7 moons had passed, they had found the earth covered with tall, green, tasseled plants. The plant's fruit, corn, was the First Mother's flesh, given so that the people might live and flourish. And they partook of First Mother's flesh and found it sweet beyond words. Following her instructions, they did not eat all, but put many kernels back into the earth. In this way, her flesh and spirit renewed themselves every 7 months, generation after generation. And at the spot where they had burned First Mother's bones, there grew another plant, broad-leafed and fragrant. It was First Mother's breath, and they heard her spirit talking. "Burn this up and smoke it. It is sacred. It will clear your minds, help your prayers, and gladden your hearts." And the First Mother's husband called the first plant Skarmunal, corn, and the second plant Utarmurwaye, tobacco. "Remember," he told the people, "and take good care of First Mother's flesh, because it is her goodness becomes substance. Take good care of her breath, because it is her love turned into smoke. Remember her and think of her whenever you eat, whenever you smoke this sacred plant, because she has given her life so that you might live. Yet she is not dead, she lives. In undying love, she renews herself again and again." Retold from 3 19th century sources, including Joseph Nicolar. Well, that was an interesting tale. I mean, I can see there being a lot of parallels between this story and the story in the New Testament. But once again, I'm not here to analyze religion, just seeing stories as stories. But man, all this talk about corn is going to be hungry. Alrighty. I'm kind of glad that these stories are short. If it was something long like A Christmas Carol, I don't know how long I'd be able to last. In fact, I already feel myself slowly drifting away, so excuse me. Let me see. Maybe two more stories and then I'll wrap things up. Yes, this will be a short stream, but you can still replay this over and over again on YouTube. And I think I still have my Christmas Carol VOD up both on Twitch for now, and I think I've got it uploaded to YouTube as well. I have to check a look later. Okay. The creation of the animal people from the Okanogans. The earth was once a human being. Old One made her out of a woman. You will be the mother of all people, he said. Earth is alive, yet, but she has been changed. The soil is her flesh. The rocks are her bones. The wind is her breath. Trees and grass are her hair. She lives spread out, and we live on her. When she moves, we have an earthquake. After taking the woman and changing her to earth, Old One gathered some of her flesh and rolled it into balls as people do with mud or clay. He made the first group of these balls into the ancients, the beings of the early world. The ancients were people, yet also animals. In form, some looked human, while some walked on all fours like animals. Some could fly like birds. Others could swim like fishes. All had the gift of speech, as well as greater powers and cunning than either animals or people. But deer were never among the ancients. They were always animals, even as they are today. Besides the ancients, real people and real animals lived on the earth at that time. Old One made the people out of the last balls of mud he took from the earth. He rolled them over and over, and shaped them like Native Americans, and blew on them to bring them alive. They were so ignorant that they were the most helpless of all the creatures Old One had made. Old One made people and animals into males and females so that they might breed and multiply. Thus, all living things came from the earth. When we look around, we see part of our mother everywhere. The difficulty with the early world was that most of the ancients were selfish and some were monsters. There was always much trouble among them. They were also very stupid in some ways. Though they knew they had to hunt in order to live, they did not know which creatures were deer and which were people, and sometimes they ate people by mistake. At last Old One said, "There will soon be no people if I let things go on like this." So he sent Coyote to kill all the monsters and other evil beings among the ancients and teach the Indians how to do things, or Native Americans how to do things. Sorry, that is a term that I'm trying to avoid, but that is how it's written in this book. And Coyote began to travel the earth, teaching the Native Americans, making life easier and better for them, and performing many wonderful deeds. Reported by Ella Clark in the 1950s. Another very fascinating take on the origin of life. I mean, this particular tale really talks a lot about just how close humanity is to other living creatures. Having them say that we're all from the same mother, Earth. I don't know what else to say. For now, let's just move on to the last story I will be reading for tonight, Stone Boy, from the Brol Sioux. Depending on the individual storyteller, the Sioux legend of Stone Boy takes many different forms. The following version from the Cheyenne River Reservation was heard by Henry Crow Dog around 1910 when he was a child listening to the storytellers at the campfire. Let me just take a water first before I begin this tale. Okay. Back in the great days of the Native Americans, a maiden and her 5 brothers lived together. People in those days had to look for food. It was their main occupation. So while the sister cooked and made clothes, the brothers spent their days hunting. It happened once that this family moved their teepee to the bottom of a canyon. It was a strange, silent place, but there was water in a creek, and the hunting was good. The canyon was cool in the summer, and shielded from wind in the winter. Still, when the brothers went out hunting, the girl was always waiting for them. Waiting and listening, she heard noises. Often she thought they were footsteps, but when she looked outside, no one was there. Then one evening, only four of the 5 brothers came back from hunting. They and the sister stayed awake all night, wondering what could have happened to the other. The next day, when the men went hunting, only 3 returned. Again, they and the sister stayed awake, wondering. The next evening, only 2 came home, and they and the girl were afraid. In those early days, the natives had no sacred ceremonies or prayers to guide them, so it was hard for the maiden and her 2 brothers to watch through the night in that ghostly place. Again, the brothers went out in the morning, and only a single one returned that night. Now the girl cried and begged for him to stay home. But they had to eat. And so in the morning, her last and youngest brother, whom she loved best of all, went out to hunt. Like the others, he did not come back. Now, no one would bring the maiden food or water or protect her. Weeping, the girl left the canyon and climbed to the top of a hill. She wanted to die, but did not know how to. Then she saw a round pebble lying on the ground. Thinking that it would kill her, she picked it up and swallowed it. With peace in her heart, the maiden went back to the teepee. She drank some water and felt a stirring inside her, as if the rock were telling her not to worry. She was comforted, though she could not sleep for missing her brothers. The next day, she had nothing left to eat except some pemmican and berries. She meant to eat them and drink water from the creek, but she found she wasn't hungry. She felt as if she had been to a feast and walked around singing to herself. The following day, she was happy in a way she had never been before. On the 4th day that the girl had been alone, she felt pain. Now the end comes, she thought. Now I die. She didn't mind, but instead of dying, she gave birth to a little boy. What will I do with this child, she wondered. How did it come? It must be that stone I swallowed. The child was strong with shining eyes. Though the girl felt weak for a while, she had to keep going to care for the new life, her son. She named the boy Ian Hokshi, Stone Boy, and wrapped him in her brother's clothes. Day after day, he grew 10 times faster than ordinary infants, and with a more perfect body. The mother knew that her baby had great powers. One day, when he was playing outside the teepee, he made a bow and arrows all on his own. Looking at his flint arrowhead, the mother wondered how he had done it. Maybe he knows that he was a stone and I've swallowed him, she thought. He must have a rock nature. The baby grew so fast that he was soon walking. His hair became long, and as he matured, his mother became afraid she would lose him as she had lost her brothers. She cried often, and though he did not ask why, he seemed to know. Very soon he was big enough to go hunting, and when she saw this, the mother wept more than ever. Stone Boy came into the teepee. "Mother, don't cry," he said. "You used to have 5 uncles," she said, "but they went out hunting one after another. They did not come back." And she told them about his birth, how she had gone to the top of a hill and swallowed a stone, and how she felt something moving inside her. "I know," he said, "and I am going to look for your brothers, my uncles." "But if you don't return," she sobbed, "what will I do?" "I will come back," he told her. "I will come back with my uncles. Stay in the teepee until I do." So the next morning, Ian Hokshi started walking and watching. He kept on till dusk, when he found a good place to sleep. He wandered for 4 days, and on the evening of the 4th day, he smelled smoke. Ian Hokshi, this stone boy, he followed the smell. It led him to a teepee with smoke coming from its smoke hole. The teepee was ugly and ramshackle. Inside, Ian Hokshi could see an old woman who was ugly too. She watched him past, and calling him over, invited him to eat and stay the night. Stone Boy went into the teepee, though he was uneasy in his mind and a little timid. He looked around and saw 5 big bundles propped up on end, leaning against the teepee wall, and he wondered. The old woman was cooking some meat. When it was done, he ate it, though it didn't taste good. Later, she fixed a dirty old buffalo robe for him to sleep on, but he sensed danger and felt wide awake. "I have a backache," the old woman said. "Before you go to sleep, I wish you would rub it for me by walking up and down my back. I am old and alone. I have nobody to help me with my pain." She lay down, and Stone Boy began walking on her back. As he did, he felt something sticking up under her buckskin robe, something sharp like a knife or a needle or the point of a spear. "Maybe she used this sharp tool to kill my uncles," he thought. "Maybe she put poison from a snake on its point. Yes, that must be so." Yan Hokshi, having pondered, jumped high in the air, as high as he could, and came down on the old woman's back with a crash. He jumped and jumped until he was exhausted, and the hag was lying dead with a broken back. Then Yang Hokshi walked over to the big bundles, which were wrapped in animal hides and lashed together with rawhide thongs. He unwrapped them, and he found 5 men, dead and dried like jerked meat, hardly human-looking. These must be my uncles, he thought, but he didn't know how to bring them back to life. Outside the ugly teepee was a heap of rocks, round gray stones. He found that they were talking and that he could understand them. "Yan Hokshi, Stone Boy, you are one of us. You come from us. You come from Tunka. You came from Ian. Listen, pay attention." Following their instructions, he built a little dome-like hut out of bent willow sticks. He covered it with the old woman's buffalo robes and put the 5 dead, dried-up humans inside. Out in the open, he built a big fire. He set the rocks right in the flames. He picked up the old woman and threw her in to burn up. As the rocks glowed red hot, Stone Boy found a deer antler and used it to carry them one by one into the little hut he made. He picked up the old woman's water bag, a buffalo bladder decorated with quill work and filled it with water. He drew its rawhide tie tight and took it inside too. Then he placed the dried humans around him in a circle. Ian Hokshi closed the entrance of his little lodge with a flap of a buffalo robe, so that no air could escape or enter. Pouring water from the bag over them, he thanked the rocks, saying, "You brought me here." 4 times he poured the water. 4 times he opened the flap and closed it. Always he spoke to the rocks, and they to him. As he poured, the little lodge filled with steam, so that he could see nothing but the white mist in the darkness. When he poured water a second time, he sensed a stirring. When he poured the third time, he began to sing. And when he poured the fourth time, those dead, dried up things also began to sing and talk. I believe they have come to life, thought Ian Hoaxie the stone boy. Now I want to see my uncles. He opened the flap for the last time, watching the steam flow out and rise into the sky as a feathery cloud. The bonfire and the moonlight both shone into the little sweat lodge, and by their light he saw 5 good-looking young men sitting inside. He thought, "Ho, Lexi, you must be my uncles." They smiled and laughed, happy to be alive again. Ian Hoaxie said, "This is what my mother, your sister, wanted. This is what she wished for." He also told them, "The rock saved me, and now it has saved you. Ian, Tonka, rock, Tonka. Ian, Tunkashila, the grandfather spirit, we will learn to worship. This little lodge, these rocks, the water, the fire, these are sacred. These we will use from now on, as we have done here for the first time, for purification, for life, for Wachosani, for health. All this has been given to us so that we may live. We shall be a tribe." Told by Henry Crow Dog, February 26th, 1968, at Rosebud, South Dakota. Recorded by Richard Erdos. Ooh, they got a little blurb about Henry Crow Dog himself. Let's see, he was a full-blooded Sioux elder with majestic face, craggy as the Black Hills themselves. He is the grandson of the famous Crow Dog, a chief warrior and leader of the Ghost Dancers. The first Crow Dog once voluntarily drove 150 miles to his own hanging for killing his rival, Chief Spotted Tail, only to be freed on orders of the Supreme Court, which ruled that federal law had no jurisdiction on a native reservation. Family is still very important. No matter where you come from, family is important. What am I, Fast and Furious? Yeah, those are enough stories for me for tonight. I'm gonna lay back, call it quits. Maybe see if I can get stuff ready for next week when we finish up our playthrough of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and move on to the next game as we continue our quest to hunt for more Pokemon. For now, just give me one moment to see who's live right now that we can pop over and say hi to. Hum-ba-bum-ba-bum. How about my sibling Ahegao Queen, who is currently playing Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild? Well, no. Actually, no. Why don't we stop by and say hi to Melly, who is about to play through Xenosaga, a fun game that I remember playing way back when. One of these days I'll be able to play games from the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 era, but for now, that is enough for me for tonight. I'm gonna wrap things up and keep an eye on my Twitter to see what next week's schedule will be. I will definitely be having to change the starting times considering how this week has turned out. But that's enough for me. Until then, this is Roy Brooks signing off. Later, folks.